Okay, so this lesson talks about proportions, and you might remember this from like 6th or 7th grade. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division. So usually a ratio will be comparing two things. Like you could say that for every, let's say, 2 boys at the dance, there's 3 girls. So there's a 2 to 3 ratio. Or in this case, it would be a 2 to 3 ratio. But for our purposes, we're going to be comparing them as fractions. So there's a ratio of boys to girls at the dance, and the ratio is 2 to 3. So what this is saying is that if there were, let's say, 20 boys, then there would be 30 girls, because this would always reduce down to the lowest form, which is 2/3. An equation that states that two ratios are equal is called a proportion. So here's the first example. It says the total number of students who participate in sports at Central High School is 520. So right away I'm going to set up a proportion that says that sports has 520 participants. This is compared to the number of total students in the entire school. So we'll make this total. And the total number of students in the entire school is 1850. And so it wants us to find the student to athlete ratio to the nearest 10. So in your calculator, all you're going to do is divide 520 divided by 1850. And the ratio is about 0.28, or 28% of students play sports. For this one, the country with the longest school year is China, and they go to school for 251 days. What is the ratio of school days to total days in a year for China to the nearest 10th? So 251 school days out of 365 school days, or I'm sorry, 365 total days in a year, 251 divided by 365 is about 0.6876, so it's about 0.7. In a triangle, the ratio of the measures of the three sides is 5 to 12 to 13, and the perimeter is 90 centimeters. So right now what this is saying is that there is a triangle that is a 5, 12, 13. But if we add up 5 plus 12 plus 13, you get a total perimeter of 30. So obviously these cannot be the numbers. So what we are going to talk about is that this has to be scaled by a certain number. So 5 times what plus 12 times what plus 13 times what will give us an actual perimeter of 90. Well, if I add all of this up, this is 30x, and it has to equal a perimeter of 90, and so x has to be 3. That's the scale factor. So that means that if this was the triangle, there would be another triangle that would be quite bigger or larger. And this would have to be a 15, 36, 39 triangle. And if that was the case, that would have a perimeter of 90. So I wanted to know, what is the measure of the shortest side of the triangle? The smallest number up here is 15, so 15 is the smallest side. Now, throughout the entire chapter, we're going to talk about solving proportions. So when you solve a proportion, you're going to cross multiply and then divide by what's left over. And what I mean by that is you're going to cross multiply the two things that you have, the two numbers. 18.2 times 9 would be 163.8. And then 6 times y is just 6y. And like any two-step equation, we just divide to isolate the variable. And so 163.8 divided by 6 gives you 27.3. Go ahead and try these. If you want to listen to some music while you're working, that's fine. Pay attention to this one because we need to make sure that we multiply 9 to both terms in the denominator, the numerator of the right-hand fraction. So it would be 9 times d, which is 9 times d. And then it's also 9 times -1, so this would be -9. And so that equals 8 times 18, which is 144. If we want to determine if two things are proportional, we can cross multiply, and we're going to see if the answers are equal. The answers to cross multiplication are just called the cross products. So it's like saying, hey, is 1/2 equal to 2/4? Yes, it is, because we could reduce it, but we could also just say that 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 times 4 is also 4, and 4 obviously equals 4, and so they are equal. So go ahead and try these, just cross multiply to see if these two things are the same. Now let's do some more problems. Whenever you're doing this, I always like to make a fraction that says what I'm going to compare. So in this case, we're going to compare miles to gallons. So it wants to know if a truck can drive 232 miles on 14.5 gallons, how many gallons of gasoline would it take the truck to travel 400 miles? So notice that this is 400 miles, so I need to, when I make my second fraction, I need to keep 400 in the numerator, so that way it matches up with miles. So you have miles here and miles here. We're looking for the number of gallons, so you can just go ahead and put an X here or whatever variable you would like to use. And now we're just going to cross multiply. So this is about, or it is, 5,800 equals 232x. Go ahead and divide that. And you see that x equals 25. Now we have to make sure that we label this. So look where x is. X is in the line that says gallons. So this would be 25 gallons. I'll do this last one with you, and then you guys can work on the next three by yourself before you move on. So it says the ratio of female to male shoppers. So female to male shoppers is found to be 10 to 9. And there's 1,188 male shoppers. So I'm going to put that in the denominator of my fraction. It wants to know how many shoppers there were in all that day, but before I can do that, I have to figure out how many female shoppers there were, and then I can add the females to the males. So if I go ahead here and cross multiply, 10 times 1,188, it's 11,880, and that equals 9 times x. And now if I divide by 9 on both sides, there are 1,320. But this is the answer to females. So if there's 1,320 females, you know that originally there was 1,188 males, and so the total number of shoppers for the day would be 2,508 total shoppers. Go ahead and try these last three by yourself, and then you're going to move on to the questions in the Go Formative. Remember, when you're doing unit rate, you're going to take the money and divide it by the amount. And so even though this is a few cents less, it's still over time, even though it costs more, you're getting more for a cheaper unit rate, and so the store brand is actually cheaper. If you have a 30% off coupon for Kellogg's, we're then going to compare the Kellogg's to the store brand. The 30 cents is only off the Kellogg's though.